lesson 7 in your series of lessons on the respiration topic. So today's lesson is going to be on anaerobic respiration, and we're going to talk about what that means as we progress. So let's have a look at the learning lesson. Your lesson objectives for today. We're going to recap the equation for aerobic respiration, and like I said, we'll go through what that means. We're going to understand the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and we're going to relate the effects of exercise to anaerobic respiration. First, let's start with a do now task. So you have 5 questions in front of you. I have written 5 minutes in the corner for you to complete these questions. You might take less time, you might take more time, it doesn't matter. Try as many of them as you can. Press pause, and when you are ready, press play, and we will go through the answers. Okay, question number 1. Describe the route oxygen takes from outside your bodies into your blood. So if you can remember, we're going to start the air when you breathe in enters the mouth or the nose. The oxygen is in that air, so it depends how you breathe, right? If you've got your mouth open or closed. It's going to go from the mouth or the nose into the trachea. Once it's inside the trachea, it's going to go into one of those main 2 branches called the bronchi, into the smaller ones called the bronchioles. Once it's entered the bronchioles, it's going to enter the alveoli, which were the bunch of grapes that we said last time. And then from the alveoli, it's going to make itself, the oxygen is going to travel into the blood via the capillaries. So it's going to diffuse from the alveoli into the blood in the capillaries. Well done if you got those ones correct. Question number 2. Which blood vessels take blood to the heart and away from the heart? So to the heart, I don't know if you remember my tip for remembering from last week. To the heart, we say the veins are the way into the heart, and the arteries take it away. Arteries away, veins way in. So arteries and take blood away from the heart. Question number 3. Which part of the cell does respiration take place? So this one begins with M. It's a very long-winded word, I think. Mitochondria. Well done if you got that one correct, especially the spelling on that one. Mitochondria. Question number 4. Where are non-metals found on a periodic table? This is a really random question which is unrelated to the topic we've been doing so far, but let's see if you can remember. Question 4. Where are non-metals found on a periodic table? If you had written they are on the right-hand side, you would have been correct. Okay, so non-metals are found on the right-hand side of the periodic table. And question number 5, what are the units for frequency? We know that the units for frequency are hertz, so you could have written this in 2 ways. You could have written the whole word like this, or you could have done the shorthand version, which was a capital H and a lowercase z, hertz. So well done if you got those ones correct. Take however long you need if you need to make some corrections, or you can put ticks all the way through. And when you're done, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so for your starter activity, I just want you to have a think. You don't need to write anything down in your book for this slide. I just want you to have a think. Have you ever had a stitch? Have you ever had a stitch? And have you ever exercised so hard that you just can't go on anymore? I know a lot of us must have come across that sometime, especially when you have to do cross country in the winter at school. I don't know why they make you do it in the winter, but anyways. And then the last question, what do you think is going on in your body when this happens? So if you've ever had a stitch and exercised so hard that you just can't go on, what do you think is going on in your body when you feel that way? That's what we're going to consider in this lesson. So think about it and keep it in your mind when we go through the rest of the slides. Okay, so for this, we're going to write the answer in our books. So for the first question, what process gives our muscles energy? Second question, what things are needed for this process? And then the third question, which organs are important in obtaining these materials and transporting these materials? So let's go through this slide together. So question 1, what process gives our muscles energy? We know that the name of this process is respiration. And we know that the things needed for respiration, we've got 2 of those. We've got glucose and we've got oxygen. So we require glucose and oxygen for the respiration reaction, and that's going to give us energy to do the exercise or any movement that we need to do. Question number 3, which organs are important in obtaining these materials and in transporting these materials? So let's break that down. So in obtaining these materials, here we go. So just for obtaining, for the glucose, we know that the glucose is obtained from the food that we eat, and the organs that are important in obtaining that glucose and processing it and allowing it to be absorbed into the bloodstream is the digestive system. So we know that the stomach, the liver, the small intestine, the pancreas, all of those are part of the digestive system, and glucose is acquired in that way. And then if we look at the oxygen, how does the body obtain the oxygen? Which organ is important? And we know that's the lungs. We know the lungs are really important in obtaining the oxygen. Now, in transporting these materials, let's consider how these materials are transported around the body. So once we've got them into the body, for both of them, the transport of glucose and oxygen is linked to the heart. And connected to the heart, obviously, are your blood vessels. Okay, so you've got glucose that makes its way into your body via the digestive system. Oxygen makes its way into your body via the lungs, and then it's the job of the heart to transport that where it needs to go. So now we come to the other kind of respiration, and we have 2 kinds. One which you're very familiar with, the aerobic respiration, which you've learnt about in the last few lessons, and we've also got a different kind of respiration known as anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration, which is the first one that you can see, that is simply respiration in the presence of oxygen, so with oxygen. So you can see on the reaction we've got glucose plus oxygen makes carbon dioxide and water, and of course you're also going to release energy in the process. Now the second kind of respiration reaction is called anaerobic respiration, and this takes place when you don't have enough oxygen. Okay, so you can see at the bottom the equation, I've got glucose and it's simply turning into a chemical called lactic acid. Now this also produces energy, but just not as much as if oxygen was present. Okay, so anaerobic respiration takes place without oxygen. So I want you to copy this information down. 2 types of respiration. Aerobic respiration is with oxygen. Copy the equation. Anaerobic respiration takes place without oxygen. And I would like for you to copy the equation as well. And you can kind of see as well where anaerobic respiration might take place. So if we don't have enough oxygen in the body, then anaerobic respiration is going to take place, and it's going to produce lactic acid. Now, if we link this back to the starter activity, I asked you if you've ever felt a stitch or if you've exercised so hard that you just can't carry on and your muscles start hurting. And that's due to this lactic acid. So if there's a buildup of lactic acid, if you get a stitch, then that means you're not getting enough oxygen for aerobic respiration. So you're going to produce lactic acid instead. And this hurts. So anaerobic respiration takes place when you are too active and you just can't get enough oxygen for what your body needs. So your body, instead of doing aerobic respiration with the oxygen, it doesn't have enough oxygen, so it starts respiring anaerobically instead. And it produces lactic acid, which is what makes your muscles hurt. Okay. So why might we be lacking in oxygen? Let's have a think about it. So why might the mitochondria in our cells not get enough oxygen? You don't need to copy anything down for this slide. We're just going to have a think about it. So we said aerobic respiration happens when we've got plenty of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration happens when we don't have enough oxygen. Why might we not get enough oxygen? Why might the mitochondria in our cells not get enough oxygen? There's two things that you can really consider for this one. The first thing is linked to the breathing rate. Okay, so you might not be breathing quickly enough to get that oxygen into your blood. And then the second one is linked to your heart rate. Your heart might not be pumping enough blood around the body to deliver the oxygen to the cells where the mitochondria are. But then, why might we even need more oxygen in the first place? Why do you think the body will need more oxygen? And we can link that back to the starter activity, isn't it? It's when we exercise. So if we exercise, then we're going to need more oxygen to be used in aerobic respiration to release that energy that we're going to need. If we need more oxygen, we will get that extra respiration reaction taking place for that energy. Okay, so we might need more oxygen in the first place if we're exercising or more active. So I would like for you to copy down this information on this slide. And I know I've shown you this picture before, but I think it's a really nice link between the role of the lungs and the role of the heart as it relates to respiration. Okay, so respiration is that chemical reaction between glucose and oxygen. The lungs are going to get the oxygen, as you can see, we got you something, and then the heart is going to say, I love it, I'm going to share it with everyone. Okay. So if you are lacking in oxygen, what that means is you may not be breathing fast enough to get the oxygen from the air. So those lungs might not be able to get enough oxygen, and then your low heart rate, your heart might not work fast enough to deliver it. So copy this information down into your books, and then we can go on to the next slide. Right, this slide really talks about why else the heart rate might increase. Okay, so we said that the heart rate needs to increase to deliver all of that oxygen. Otherwise, anaerobic respiration is going to take place. And we don't want that, because if anaerobic respiration takes place, it's going to produce lactic acid, which is a chemical that's going to make our muscles feel quite sore. It's going to be quite painful. So the heart rate is going to increase just so that it can obtain that oxygen and deliver it, but it's a number of different reasons as well. Okay, so not only does the heart rate increase to obtain that oxygen from the lungs and to deliver it to the cells, but it needs to obtain the glucose as well from the digestive system and deliver that to the cells. And then in addition to that, it needs to pick up the carbon dioxide waste from the cells and deliver it to the lungs so that it can be breathed out. So if you get asked a question, why does the heart rate increase? If you mention the oxygen, that's absolutely fantastic. But you might be asked to give a number of different reasons, and they are listed in front of you. So if you just copy these down into your book, and then we'll go on to the next slide when you're ready. Okay, so let's bring it all together. Let's have a look at what exercise does and bring all the information together. So if you need to exercise, if you do more exercise, what's going to happen? You're going to require a lot more energy. And if you require a lot more energy, you're going to need more aerobic respiration, which is the reaction that is going to give you that energy. And if we've got more aerobic respiration, we're going to need more oxygen and glucose for that reaction. Okay. And if we need more oxygen and glucose for that reaction, we're going to have a faster breathing rate to get that oxygen in, but we're also going to have a faster heart rate to deliver that oxygen. Okay. Phew. So that's the link between exercise and respiration. More exercise means more energy is required, which means you're going to have more aerobic respiration, which means you're going to need more oxygen and glucose for that respiration reaction, and that means you'll need a faster breathing rate to get that oxygen and a faster heart rate to deliver it. Okay. And we know that if you don't get that oxygen in fast enough, if your breathing rate doesn't increase and your heart rate doesn't increase, then you know you won't be able to deliver that oxygen to those cells fast enough. So rather than having aerobic respiration, we're going to have anaerobic respiration. So I'm just going to write that down at the beginning. If oxygen is not delivered to the cells, anaerobic respiration occurs. Instead, where lactic acid is made. Okay, so copy the information you see in front of you, and then let's go on to the next slide. Right, now the next slide is just a picture here of a task that I have uploaded onto ClassCharts, or your teacher will have uploaded onto ClassCharts, and it links what you've learnt so far. So it's got questions on a breathing rate, why you might increase your breathing rate during exercise, what effect it has, what happens if you don't get enough oxygen, and so forth. Okay, so try this task, you'll find it on ClassCharts, and then we'll go through the answers in another lesson. So I will upload the answers for you in another lesson. All right, so complete this task. When you're done, okay, so you will have completed the task by now. There is a series of questions on this slide that I'd like you to do before the end of the lesson. So this is really a recap, and it links what you did last lesson and this lesson as well. So have a read through these 4 questions. You've got 6 minutes to consider your answer for these ones, and when you're ready, we'll go through them together. Okay, so question number 1, what was the increase in your breath rate during exercise from the last lesson? How long did it take for your breathing rate to recover back to normal? So my breathing rate per minute was 16 breaths at rest. It went up to 28 after I had jogged on the spot. I may or may not have run around the house. And it took me about 5 minutes for it to come back to normal from what I noticed. Okay, so it didn't go back to 16 straight away as soon as I stopped. Question 2, give 3 reasons why your heart rate needs to increase during exercise. There's 3 things you could have said. Number 1, to deliver more oxygen for aerobic respiration, so to deliver more oxygen. The second one was to deliver more glucose for aerobic respiration. So remember, we need both of those things for aerobic respiration. And then finally, to pick up the carbon dioxide waste, okay, and take it to the lungs. So you could have written any of these 3 things. I apologize, what my pen has just done right there. Third question, why does your heart rate remain high after exercise? And the reason why your heart rate remains high after exercise, have a think about what a marathon runner's muscles must be doing. So if someone's just run a marathon, they've run 26 miles, the minute they stop running and they pass that finish line, their muscles are still going to be very, very active. Okay, so your heart rate remains high to deliver the oxygen to muscles that are still active. And if we link that to aerobic respiration, we need to keep delivering that oxygen Otherwise, there will be a buildup of lactic acid. Okay, so your heart rate remains high after exercise to deliver the oxygen to muscles that are still active. This prevents aerobic respiration. Sorry, this prevents anaerobic respiration from occurring. And prevents lactic acid buildup. And the final question, what other organism respires anaerobically and what is the product? This is your homework. Okay, so what other organism respires anaerobically and what is the product? I'm actually going to give you the name of the other organism, yeast cells. I want you to tell me what the product is when a yeast cell respires anaerobically. It's not lactic acid, it produces something else. So have a search, find the answer for me, and I will look forward to seeing your replies when you submit your lesson of the day. Really well done. That's the end of. Don't forget, you have to take a picture of your work and submit it on class charts. I or your class teacher will be checking. If you do have any questions, please email your class teacher. Have a lovely rest of the week and I will see you soon. Bye.